Hi, I'm Pete, and welcome to Just a Few Acres Farm. Here it is the middle of July, and we're at the height of our summer farm work, so I thought this video would be a good time to show you all around the farm and do a midsummer farm tour. The theme that runs through everything for us is this has been an abnormally dry year, and farming's all about what you plan on as far as climate. Since June 1st, we've received 2.5 inches of rain, which is about half of what we would normally receive. We're grass farmers, which means everything that we do depends on the growth of the grass, grazing the cattle, grazing the chickens. All of our animals are on grass, so the grass is stalled, and that's impacting our operation, not so much for the poultry and the pigs, but for the cattle, and I'll get to that a little bit later. Compounding the lack of rain, it's been hot. It's been in the upper 80s, and the humidity's running 80% to 90% range. It's not been pleasant to work outside. The great news is that the weather broke last night. We got 1.75 inches worth of rain, and we got 1/2 inch yesterday morning. So when you add all that up, I'm hoping, since the weather's broke and we're getting some cool weather now, it's in the mid-70s now, the grass will start growing again. Here's how a typical day on the farm goes in midsummer. We get up early and try to do most of our work in the morning and early afternoon before it gets too hot. We get up at around 5:30 and head out to do morning chores. We let the laying hens out of the egg mobile and we feed and water them. We move the broiler boxes ahead one spot and feed and water them. We feed and water the pullets. Feed and water the bulls. Feed and water the sows and the boar and say good morning to them. There you go, lady. Howdy, cows. And check on the cattle in the field. Feed the pigs that are on pasture. Feed and water the chicks in the brooder house. We make breakfast after chores, and by 8 o'clock or 8:30 we're back out to take care of morning projects. Twice a week we have to butcher chickens, and that takes the whole morning. Once a week I have to go to farmer's market, and that takes pretty much the whole day. And twice a week I have to film a YouTube video. Can't forget about that. On the other days of the week that we don't have to do those jobs, there's lots of projects piled up. Building the heifer yard fence, building the pen in the barn, cleaning out pig pens, cleaning out the brooder house, repairing and maintaining machinery. There's always a longer list of projects to do than we have time for. Lunch is promptly at noon, and we head in, spend about a half hour, and then we head back out to take care of the same projects we started in the morning. And then at 3 or 4 o'clock it's time for afternoon chores, and those take us about an hour. We pretty much run through the same pattern as we did in the morning. Afternoon chores are done at 4 or 4:30, and then we head into the house for the rest of the day. The only exception is when I'm making hay, and then I work as late as is needed. In the afternoon, after we're done with afternoon chores, it's time to do computer work, correspondence, pay bills, take care of farm financials, that sort of thing. And we eat dinner at around 5:30. If I'm lucky, I can squeeze in a nap between dinner and when we head downstairs to watch TV. We watch TV for about an hour, we go to bed at 9:15, we get up and we start it all over again. And I love it. That's the farm life. Now for my farm tour, starting with the cattle. We had to bring the cattle in a few days ago from pasture and start feeding them hay, and they're wasting a lot of it. I've never had to feed round bales outside before, so I don't have a bale ring, and I gotta run and get one. There's nothing I hate more than feeding hay in the summer. I hate to run out of pasture, but it's happened to us twice. It happened to us once in 2017 when we had a drought and we had to feed the cattle for 2 or 3 weeks on hay, and now it's happened again this year. Hopefully they'll be back out on grass in a week or two, because with this rain I'm hoping that the grass will start growing again. Here's where our pastures are at, and this one has the most growth of all of them. Alfalfa will keep growing during a drought because it's so deep-rooted, but the problem that we have with alfalfa is every year we get leaf hoppers, which are the same thing as potato bugs. And they'll eat on the stem and take the sap away from the plant, and they start to yellow. So when it gets into mid to late summer months like this, we wind up cutting alfalfa to control the leafhopper population. The brown patches that you see in the pasture are not grass that's died because of lack of rain. I went through and clipped this pasture high and took down all the dead seed heads. So that stubble that you see standing up is from where I clipped the seed heads off. Our pastures would not normally look like this at this time of year, because I got all messed up with our grazing when I thought we had to somehow fit mob grazing into the way we did things. And I let a lot of the grass get too tall. Normally I would cut it for hay, and normally at this time our pastures would be lush and about that tall and just filled with legumes, but yeah, there's no way I'm going to try that experiment again next year because it really hurt us in the long run. The cows are really belly aching at me. These cattle will go through one 5x5 bale a day, which is about twice as much as they were eating in the winter, because I'm feeding it outside and I don't have a bale ring to contain it. So what do? They tear the bale apart, they rub it all over the place, and then they don't eat it, they walk on it. We got our first steer back from the butcher about a week ago, and I was kind of disappointed. If you recall, I was doing an experiment through last winter feeding the cattle supplemental protein to see if it increased dress weights. And the steer that we got back was quite different from previous steers we've gotten back around the same time and growth stage of the year. He was really lean. He dressed about 325 pounds, which is about what I expect for a steer that's grass finished at his age. But the meat wasn't marbled up as much as I would like, and I guess I'm attributing it to a couple factors. Number one, the feeding of protein, and number two, our switching our grazing around that put them on substandard forage during the spring, so he couldn't finish out like they normally do. I'm not making that mistake again. I love cattle, but poultry is our bread and butter. It's a steady stream of income that we can count on almost no matter what. Our laying hens are laying about 14 dozen a day now, and we have between 250 and 270 laying hens out here. They're down from the 18 dozen a day they were laying at the summer solstice, and that's how egg production works. You hit your peak on the summer solstice, they decline all the way to the winter solstice. Most of our predator problems with laying hens occur in the winter when weasels can get into the winter house. We're going to fix that this year. But this summer we've had an uncommon problem with a hawk. Now, a hawk will come along and get maybe one chicken every 2 weeks in a typical summer, but we've got a big hawk out here now, and he's been taking up to a couple chickens a day. He hasn't taken any in a couple days, but I'm sure he's going to be back. He sure does like his chicken dinner. There's really not much we can do about a hawk, and we have to kind of take those losses. The chickens do run under the wagon, and the roosters warn them when the hawk's around, but the hawk's gotten bold enough where he'll come right under the wagon and get one. Broiler production is our most refined system, and we've really got that down to a science. We run these boxes all summer long. We start butchering in late May, right through to mid-October. We're butchering twice a week, bringing fresh chicken to market. We stagger the batches so that the birds come ready at the right time for butcher. It's a huge income source that we rely on. The only issues we've had with broilers this year is actually getting them. The hatcheries have been great, but the Postal Service has not been great. We've had 2 batches that came partially dead because of shipping problems, either a long shipment or they didn't ventilate the boxes properly. Luckily, we got a great hatchery that replaces stock that arrives dead, and so we're on track. Turkey season is coming. We always love raising turkeys. This is their arc that they spend their adulthood in. They're coming next week. They'll spend 5 weeks in the brooder, and then they'll be out on pasture with the rest of the poultry. I nearly had a coronary about our turkeys last week. Our turkeys were due to ship last Tuesday, and on Tuesday the hatchery called and said, "We don't have any turkeys for you." Holy crap, this has never happened to me before. I asked her, well, you must have an overhatch waiting list or availability in the coming weeks. She said, no, we don't have any for a year. You can order for next year at this point. I said, that is not acceptable. We've got about 1/3 of these turkeys sold already, and our customers are depending on us. We always provide a Thanksgiving turkey. So I pled my case with her, and she finally said, well, let me have my manager call you. And needless to say, I lost some sleep that night thinking about what I was going to tell my customers about the lack of turkey this year. And so after a couple days, I got an email from the hatchery, and they said, well, we're trying to locate some turkey poults for you. Will you accept either all male or female poults instead of the straight run poults that we normally get? And I said, yes, of course, we'll take anything we can get at this point. And then the day after that, they contacted me and said, well, one of our partner hatcheries has 100 male turkey poults available this Wednesday, and they can ship them. And I was like, holy cow, disaster averted. This is the only way in which the virus debacle and all the implications of it could have possibly severely negatively affected our farm, and fortunately disaster averted. So turkeys will be coming next week if the Postal Service ships them properly. The pigs are 3 months old now. There's 12 of them in here, and they've been rooting around digging up stuff, which is what pigs love to do. There's lots of shade in here, which has been great during the hot weather. Pigs don't like the heat at all. And actually what they've done is they've started building a nice wallow here at the bottom of their nipple drinker, and they just work on the nipples and they pour water out, and then they can roll around in that water. So these guys are doing good. They're going to grow out for 7 months this time until they go to the butcher. That's the earliest date I could get, November 15th. So I've been feeding them a little light so that they don't put on too much fat before they go. Our brood sows are both pregnant, and they're both due toward the end of September. They've been just hanging out in here during the hot weather, and we do our best to keep them cool. We spray them with water when we come out and water them, and leave a lot of water in their pens so that they can sort of roll around in and get that evaporative cooling off their bodies. We're growing out a new sow. Her name is Brownie, and she's mostly Hereford. She's a good pig. She's friendly. She wags her tail a lot. The reason we're growing her out is because we're going to replace our sow Missy with her. Missy's a nice looking pig, but she's a really bad mother, so we've got to get rid of her, and I don't know if I'll be able to get her in at the butcher. If I don't, we'll pick a cool day or a cool stretch in the fall and we'll butcher ourselves, and she'll feed us for a couple years. She's a big pig. Lastly, regarding our farm business, our sales have been off the charts this year. I noticed last fall at the farmers markets that our sales started to really tick upward going into October and November. And I think what's finally happened is we've been around long enough and we've built a good enough reputation where our existing customer base is spread to the point that's sustainable, and word of mouth has really gotten around. When this COVID thing hit, our sales just went through the roof, and we sold all the stock we had, and that's pretty much continued. Normally at this time of year I'd be going to 3 farmers markets, Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday. It takes a lot of our time during the summer, but this year I'm only going to 1, and I'm bringing in as much money at the 1 Saturday market as I would have in all 3 of the markets in previous years. So I'm grateful to be able to get the extra farm work done. We also do farm pickups on Wednesday afternoons, and we limit it to just Wednesday afternoons now so that we can sort of compress it and maximize how much work we can get done without having to watch the driveway for customers coming in. And we're making more on a Wednesday afternoon from the farm than we would have going away to market, and it's a heck of a lot easier. Nothing outside the farm has been normal this year, and it's comforting for us to follow the same cycles as we always follow on the farm. Yes, there are problems. There's hawks in the hen house and problems with turkeys and dry weather, but that's a normal year for us. There's always problems. Next year it could be wet weather or some problem with the cattle, and I think that what's great about farming is the way that you address these problems, and that you're always having to figure out new solutions and learn new things to solve those problems. And I think that in life, it's not about the problems you face, but what determines who you are is how you address those problems and how you answer and solve those problems. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.